My name is Michael Feinstein, last name Feinstein, like Einstein with an F. I was on my city council in Santa Monica for 8 years. I was mayor for 2 years, and I actually got elected by staying honest to my progressive political beliefs when I campaigned. My running was really a test to see if running on progressive values could work. So it did. I finished second of 13 candidates for 4 seats in '96, and in 2000 I was reelected with the second highest vote total of the city, and then appointed mayor. So what that teaches us, and for I think a lot of the people who are in the Occupy movement, is if we're right that we're really part of the 99%, then you don't have to be a white male millionaire attorney to get elected. And if you actually campaign on issues that people care about, and you can do it on a grassroots level, which is easier on a municipal level and a higher level, you actually can get elected. So a lot of the folks now who are in the Occupy movement and don't think about politics have to remember what the Green presidential candidate Ralph Nader said years ago, is that if you don't turn to politics, politics will turn on you. And I am a practical example in a very grassroots way that if you will stand for values that are part of the commons, are part of the 99%, that people will vote for you. And we can change the power structure. Yeah, I never expected anything from Obama because he was pro-nuke from the beginning.
Pro what?
Pro-nuke. And for me, as a Green Party member, the idea of being for nuke and calling yourself progressive, you know that you're not telling the truth. So all these people who hid a lot of their hopes on him in the beginning of 2008, I never bought into it. Yeah.
Who'd you vote for?
I voted for Cynthia McKinney, Green Party candidate. And
She's a badass.
you know, as this I think really relates to where I think a lot of the occupiers need to get to. There's going to be a certain point at which you got to talk about what kind of electoral complement to the movements in the streets and in the parks and everywhere that we're occupying. And when you look at the McKinney race and the presidential races, the fact that what we advocate for the Green Party is ranked choice voting, where you could have ranked the Green Party candidate number 1 and then the Democrat candidate number 2, or say the Green first and the Peace and Freedom second, and maybe some independent candidate third, like Mike Chamness did. It is a Coffee Party candidacy in the South Bay. So what happens there? We're sitting here now and we have a lot of demands, we have a lot of asks, whatever you call it, depending on where the Occupy is. And it's hard to go out and campaign for some of those things and figure out how you're going to get the leverage. And a lot of people who are to the center left say, oh, if you run too many parties, that's going to split the center left vote, and that's going to help the center right, and they're going to start trying to talk about Florida in 2000 and Nader candidacy and all this, and then now all of a sudden they are telling you don't run anybody on your own, just trust the Democrats. And then the party will just, or the movement will just get co-opted into the idea of whether we re-elect Obama, and it'll undermine everything. So what ranked choice voting does, and where I'm hoping a lot of the Occupy movements get to, is that if you can rank your choices, now the Green Party candidate, let's say that it's being against the state execution, capital punishment, the so-called death penalty, like hockey, 2 minutes, death penalty. We're against that, absolutely. And let's say you're a Democrat and 15% of your vote came from a constituency that had said, one of our main things is getting rid of capital punishment, or it's fair trade agreements rather than the nonsense that Obama just passed through recently with South Korea and Colombia and all of that. So what happens then is now you get elected and the Democrat says, wow, 15-20% of my vote came from people who their number one issue was getting rid of the death penalty, or let's say it's one of the reforms to Wall Street that we're talking about. Now the person who wins looks at that and realizes that there's a quantified constituency that made a statement for a certain political perspective, and that if they don't do something for that, they might not get that ranking the second time. How does that compare with our current system? Our current system is you plug your nose, you vote for the lesser of evils, you end up getting the evil of 2 lessers as a result because you keep doing that every time, but then the person who gets elected says, all the people who care about the issue voted for me anyway, and therefore I already have them, and it's not really an issue. I don't have to do anything for all of their asks. So when you look at the kind of the connection here for the Green Party And the whole Occupy movement, I mean, we endorse it up and down around the country because when you read the Occupy statement from Wall Street, it's like our platform. Every issue is there. The fact that those issues are connected, the power structure, and how it leads to all those problems is connected, number one. But I think our important role, having tried to stand for those sort of issues for a couple of decades and seen the electoral impediments, is that as people in the various occupies work through how much they want to participate in the system and how much they don't want to participate in the system, then they'll come and see these impediments. And we've been working through those for 2 decades and already have pushed a lot of those reforms and embraced them, and I think can help people, instruct them on the challenges to how to change those laws and give people more say. And I would make another comparison to what's going on in Germany. In Germany, after Fukushima, after the eco-catastrophe with the nuke plant catastrophe there, all the fallout, literally and figuratively. In Germany, they went ahead and they had several state elections right after what happened in Japan. So what happened then is the Conservative Party, the Republicans of Germany, actually were in power. They were afraid of losing power to people who wanted there to be changes in the power around energy and nukes. So the fear that the Green Party would gain votes in that system not only caused their center-left party to become more anti-nuke, but it caused their center-right party. And now their whole country has decided they're phasing out the nukes quickly, they're moving to renewable energy, it's going to generate jobs, it's going to have their economy much further into the 21st century than our economy. And that's because their election system is responsive. A lot of people are trying to compare Occupy Wall Street with the Tea Party faction movement of the Republican Party and say, well, why don't you just go into the Democrats now and take them over the way the Tea Party folk took over the Republicans? Well, it's important to remember that the Tea Party people were a part of the Republicans already, and it was just a rebranding of who they were to try and sell a bad brand after they lost Bush, and that was crafty. But they also had a TV network spinning their propaganda with Fox, and they had the Koch brothers, billionaires, funding them. That isn't happening on the center-left, and the center-left is generally politically not as disciplined as well. So therefore, you're not going to see this shift on the left, on the center-left. You're not going to see it the way you saw it on the center-right in the U.S. winner-take-all system. And if we had a system where for presidents, governors, big city mayors, we had the ranked choice voting, and then we had proportional representation like they have in Germany, where if a party gets 20% of the votes, they get 20% of the seats. Under that system, the German Greens have been building slowly for 2 decades in their national parliament, building an anti-nuke voice. So then they were in place now and poised to go ahead and receive the votes, already be identified as that kind of force. Now you're seeing a major shift in German politics. If that was in place in this country, you'd be seeing Greens getting 10, 15, 20% of the vote in state legislatures, and in the federal government, you see a much, much bigger shift in policy than I think we're going to get out of this next election cycle in response to the Occupy Wall Street movement. And that's where I think the Green Party really fits in.
How can Occupy Venice shape the local political scene?
I think Occupy Venice has a really important role because of how you've got a lot of people really well off and a lot of people living on the streets in Venice, and that kind of disparity right here on the west side where life is supposed to be so perfect, and in many ways it is, but to show that kind of problem in the midst of plenty is a way of making very clear the maldistribution of opportunity, wealth, and power in the country. And a place like Venice, where everybody assumes it's wonderful, if there's a protest and a focusing there coming from bottom up, I think it really connects the local to the national in a very specific way that people might not otherwise see. And that's really important. It's not just in traditional areas of parts of the country where people have been left out. It's even here on the elite west side.
What are the plans the Greens might have in terms of trying to appeal to the Occupy movement nationwide with their plans with being a third party and a national convention?
One of the interesting challenges to how does the Green Party impact the Occupy movement is that when you go and you sit and watch the General Assemblies, people are working through, in many cases for the first time, how much part of the system they want to be or not. Do they want to cooperate with any political parties? I watched downtown LA, the Occupy movement having a big debate where they had tried to say, we don't We won't take any support from the establishment, major political parties, but try to leave the door open for other parties and people working through that. And I think there has to be a natural evolution first in the Occupy movement of people both articulating the problem, what the asks and demands are, and then the strategy to get there, and then really becoming at home themselves with how much they want to be part of the system or not. And you have to have one foot in government, you have to have one foot in the streets. I think a lot of us are confident that our platform is in alignment with the Occupy movement, and the question is how can we respectfully make that apparent without trying to tell people this is the way, but let them come to the conclusion that they want to find an electoral complement to the strategy of occupying, and then maybe the Green Party is one of those opportunities. So really we're trying to just be there because frankly for us as a party that has been raising these issues for a couple of decades and being shut out by a corporate-owned media, being shut out by debates that are run by the larger parties designed to not let anybody in, shut out by ballot access laws that are very difficult. It's been very hard to get our ideas out there in the first place. Simply the fact that people are occupying now has provided us more leverage than in some ways we've been able to provide for a couple of decades. But at the same time, it took the forethought of people being willing to start an alternative party, so when there is a historic moment like this, there's already a vehicle in place, because it's a lot of work to start a political party, to qualify one in California. You need about 100,000 people to be registered to vote in your party in the first place to get a ballot line, and we already did that. So it's a very exciting moment. There's unlimited possibilities, and for the Green Party, we just want to be there, be part of the work, because we embrace it anyway, and then if people are ready to move electorally, then we hope to be part of that change, and that transformation. I would just add that the kind of gridlock that we're seeing on a federal level, the winner-take-all systems, the incentive in that, if there's only one other party that has an arguably realistic chance of winning in a particular election, then all you have to do is bring them down. So it becomes negative and it becomes devoid of issues. But if there are many parties that can win representation, including ones on your side of the spectrum who might be more solution-oriented, like the Green Party, instead of just trying to trash the other group, then all of a sudden there's a lot more choice for voters, and the voters have the power to affect the political parties rather than the political parties forcing you into a lesser evil dynamic. And again, that's part of the value I think we can learn from Greens as part of the Occupy movement. Or as Ralph Nader said in 1996, go we go.
Go we go. Do it for the children.
Do you have a final message for the people of Occupy Venice or the general Occupy movement?
I think the challenge in Occupy Venice is going to be that it's a small area. It's not downtown LA. It may not have the same media attention and may be harder for the stamina, but you don't know, by occupying, you don't know who you're going to change. Somebody who drives by the circle one day and sees something and it starts them thinking in a way. Maybe it's somebody who has power today in the society, or maybe it's somebody who decides in 15 years that they're going to run for office and may never have thought about putting two together. So you can't underestimate the power of protest and demonstrating publicly. And fortunately in this country, in most places, for most classes of people, we can do that without getting shot. And the fact that we're here on the west side, I think we should not rest on the privileges that we have by living in this area, but speaking out here and not taking that for granted before we lose it here too would be really important. So I really support Occupy Venice for that reason.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paz, amor, dinero y vacaciones en la playa.
In the playa.